All right. Slight delay. Hey there, it's Jordan Sheridan. I am live from sunny Los Angeles, California, in a wonderful studio. We didn't even bother with the fancy graphics. We're just showing you an actual green screen behind us, thanks to Tina. Thanks to Tina, who's letting me use her awesome studio here. I'm delighted to be joined by, honestly, a role model for me. Greg Palast, independent journalist, has done incredible work, particularly in recent years, on the election fraud, voter suppression, rampant. Your film, The Best Money...
The Best Democracy.
The Best Democracy.
It's a tongue twister. The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And you've joined the group of 92% of radio hosts who can't pronounce it correctly.
This is true. But I watched it in New York, and it was fabulous. Much better than the rest of the junk that you see on Netflix, in my opinion. So
careful. Now I'm going to get Netflix executives all upset with me. We have to meet with them this week. We love you, Netflix. Right. But yes, you do need to up your game.
So you've been doing great work on California, particularly, I mean, what a headache, California, with the NPP voters, no party preference, crossover ballots, and a lot of shenanigans that go on here. So I want to get into that. But before we get into that, the breaking news, Pete Buttigieg dropped out yesterday. Now Amy Klobuchar has dropped out. They're both flying to Dallas to endorse Joe Biden tonight. So that leaves us with Bernie Sanders, Senator Warren, Michael Bloomberg. Technically, Tulsi Gabbard is still in the race. As somebody who's done a lot on, shenanigans at the polling booth, it seems to me this is the Democratic Party in the back end consolidating around Joe Biden and trying to stop Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, this is not big investigative reporting. It's pretty clear that the party put the arm on Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar to help out Joe Biden. This is the first time, though, in American history when the front runner with the most delegates, Buttigieg, and number 3 or number 4, Klobuchar, have stood aside for the guy who is in 5th place, Joe Biden. Okay, so obviously the Democratic Party is putting their arm on these people, and we also see them keeping Liz Warren in the race to split the Sanders vote. Whether this is good or bad, that's up to you. If you are a Biden supporter, you're happy to see Buttigieg go to the mat. I'm sure they told him it's not your night, champ. So we'll see what happens. That's all the fun and games of primaries, and doesn't mean a lot. The Republicans saw this in 2016 when the party panicked and they had the Never Trump crowd. Now they're the Always Trump crowd, same people. They've now just figured out how to lock their lips on the bottom of Agent Orange because they want something out of it. So my concern, if you know my work, I'm Greg Palast. I will have out today an important investigative report for the Guardian newspapers, the Guardian USA, doing a series called Fight to Vote. And I've been on the vote suppression beat. That is, it's a funny phrase, by the way, vote suppression. When someone steals your car, you don't say, my car's been suppressed, it's been stolen. I've been on the vote theft beat, stealing votes mainly from voters of color for 20 years for The Guardian, Rolling Stone, Nation, Salon, and a couple of others. But back with The Guardian, and what we found, are you ready for this? The crazy, crazy way that California counts ballots, handles its primaries. We expect Bernie Sanders to be shafted out of 553,000 votes, over 500,000 votes. And by the way, here's the interesting one. Mike Bloomberg is going to lose about 382,000 votes. What's going on here? In 2 words, Alex Padilla. He is the Secretary of State of California. That's the guy in charge of elections. America has this crazy system. Well, I guess Putin has it too. in Russia, but where party officials run the election. So I investigated Brian Kemp in Georgia, how he stole the election from Stacey Abrams. He was the Secretary of State in charge of the election. He illegally removed 1/3 of a million voters. We broke that story in Salon. That's a Republican who fixed the vote to make himself governor. So Stacey Abrams, citing my figures, has said, I was elected governor of Georgia, but I won't be inaugurated because this Republican stole the votes through Jim Crow tactics. Now we switch to California, and close your ears if you're a good Democrat. More votes get suppressed in California than in any other state of the union. And when you talk about Jim Crow tactics, they're worst in California, though I should call them Jose Crow tactics because they are aimed at two groups, Latinx voters and young voters, who happen to be the big demographic for Bernie Sanders. So here's how it works in a nutshell. We have a 3-minute film at gregpalast.com. That's GREGPALAST.com. And I hope you'll also attach it and run it. In fact, we can run it now, but I can comment. Do you want to run it now?
Yeah, let's run it.
So watch this. Don't move your eyeballs for 3 minutes.
And remember, press that like button right under the live stream. More people that press the like button, the more people that will see this fantastic report with Greg Palast. Here is the video that we're showing right here. It's on gregpalast.com.
Got sound?
Oh, yeah.
And you think of laid-back surfer dudes, palm trees, vegan taco trucks, and progressive politics. California, and you think of laid-back surfer dudes, palm trees, vegan taco trucks, and progressive politics. This is Greg Palast in Los Angeles. Will California's strange primary rules steal the big win from Bernie Sanders? Last month, the Golden State sent out 3,715,369 ballots with no presidential candidates. Most at risk, young voters and Latinx voters, the core supporters of Tio Bernie. The result, 553,000 Bernie Sanders supporters are at risk of losing their right to vote for their candidate. How did this happen? While California votes solidly Democratic in general elections, a huge 5 million Californians register independent, marked NPP, for no party preference. These NPP legal voters have the legal right to vote in the Democratic primary. But good luck trying. Many will lose their right. How? Last autumn, the state mailed all 5 million independents a postcard telling them they can ask for a Democratic ballot. Looks like junk mail. Only 1 in 11 returned the cards. Because students move a lot, less than 5% of 18 to 24-year-olds get and return the cards. Likewise, only 5% of Latinx voters return the card. Statistician Paul Mitchell calls this disenfranchisement by postcard. Mitchell is vice president of Political Data Inc., the experts used by both political parties. Mitchell polled these NPP voters and found over 2 million want to exercise their right to vote in the Democratic primary, but could lose their right because they're clueless how to get a Democratic primary ballot. Up to 86% of independents who want to vote in the Democratic primary could be locked out. Not only is Sanders likely to lose 500,000 votes, so is another favorite of independents, Michael Bloomberg. He could lose 382,000 votes. Independents can save their vote by bringing in their NPP ballots into the polling station and exchange it for a Democratic ballot, but not a regular ballot, only something called a crossover Democratic ballot. But you must know the magic word, crossover. Jen Abreu was a poll worker.
They have to specifically then ask, I would like to have a Democratic crossover ballot. And those were the words that were told to us in our poll worker training. And if this NPP voter did not specifically ask for a Democratic crossover ballot, they were given an official NPP ballot, which did not list presidential candidates on there.
But the Democratic Party rules say the poll worker cannot help the voter who does not know the magic word crossover.
And I am unable to ask you, are you sure you want an NPP ballot?
Who's behind this mass vote suppression by postcard and secret word? It was crafted by the Democratic National Committee and enforced by California's Democratic Secretary of State, this man, Alex Padilla. Who benefits from this system? Candidate Joe Biden, who is endorsed by Alex Padilla.
In Los Angeles, this is Greg Palast.
So conflicts of interest don't exist anymore, and it's easier to vote in many other countries.
Yeah, I just returned from Switzerland, where I just got married, and you don't even register to vote because they don't assume that you're a criminal when you go in to vote. Every citizen votes. By law, by the way, you have to. You don't have a choice in Switzerland. Everyone votes. No one is blocked from voting. You don't have to register. You don't have to show up with all kinds of cockamamie ID. You go in and you vote. And they vote on simple plain paper ballots, which are easy to read and understand. They're counted in public. And, but that's in the first world. In the third world, known as California, we have, are you ready for this? There is nothing like it. We have 5 million independent voters. 4 million were mailed ballots without the presidential candidates on them. 86% of the people who get these ballots, the NPP voters. Now, what does NPP? It means no party preference or independent. By the way, some of you schmucks, that's a Swiss term for people who register NPP but want to vote Democratic. If you want to vote in the Democratic primary, I hate to say it, you should register in the Democratic Party. You don't have to vote Democratic, but it allows you that ballot without problems. Now, here's the deal. Most Democrats support the mainstream candidates, Biden and others. But the independent voters, who are almost bigger than the Republican Party in America, in California, almost as big as Democrats, they favor Bernie Sanders about 2-1. And when you have the full panoply, you have the leader is Bernie Sanders. Number 2, by the way, is Michael Bloomberg, who's getting shafted by this system because the NPP voters have first of all, most have no idea that they have the right, if you're an NPP, no party preference voter, or if you ridiculously decide to join the independent party, not because you support that party, you wrote down independent. If you register as independent, my friend, in California, you're not independent. You're part of something called the Independent Party. 500,000 Californians did that. No one votes for the party, but they register there because they think they're independent. If you're independent party, if you're no party preference, in that 500,000 group, or Peace and Freedom, by the way, also, you can ask for a Democratic Party ballot, but you have to use the magic word, Democratic crossover ballot, by rules set down by Alex Padilla, our Secretary of State, and the Democratic National Committee. You cannot get a Democratic Party ballot if you're one of the 5 million unless you come in with your ballot and your envelope. The woman in front of me voting, by the way, brought in her NPP ballot to get a Democratic crossover ballot. She knew the word. You have to say crossover. They said, no, you can't get a ballot. She said, why? I said, you didn't bring the envelope. So bring the envelope and the ballot. You say, I'm surrendering my NPP or independent ballot, and I want the Democratic crossover ballot. Crossover. If you don't say crossover, you don't get that ballot. I know that some poll workers are so sickened by this that they're actually saying, screw that, I'm giving people the ballot. I won't say which poll workers did that, but a lot of them are actually in favor of democracy. Not Democrats, but democracy. I have no candidate in this race, okay? I really, truly don't tell you how to vote, who to vote for, but I want to tell you how to vote. If you want to vote in the Democratic primary, turn in your independent or NPP ballot and say, with the envelope, and say, I want the Democratic Party crossover ballot. Now, here's the second way, and this is what Tom Hartman and I recommended this morning. Register as a Democrat. Now, I'm not saying you should vote Democratic. I'm saying if you want to vote in the Democratic primary, when you show up, you have the absolute right, as of today, for the first time in California history, you can walk in and say, if they give you any crap, no, we don't want your ballot, you didn't bring the envelope, blah, 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 you're wearing an orange T-shirt, whatever they say okay, make me a Democrat for the day. Democrat for a day. That's all you have to do, is register for one day as a Democrat when you go in to vote, and they have to give you a regular Democratic ballot. Now, they put it in a weird envelope, most of the time, called conditional. We've never had conditional ballots in the history of America before, but now this is a conditional ballot. Okay, so you'll get the conditional ballot. Make sure you fill it out really, really carefully, the envelope, and sign it. Thousands and thousands of conditional ballots, and the other thing called the provisional ballot, which is a death ballot. If you get a provisional ballot or a conditional ballot, make sure you sign it. And if it says ask for your driver's license and you don't have a driver's license, put no license. If you leave it blank, you lose your vote. Now,
what's the difference between a conditional and a provisional ballot?
the difference between a conditional and provisional ballot is whatever the hell Alex Padilla says it is. Because no one's ever had this. He's made up this cockamamie thing. It's completely insane. It's a way to steal your vote. But a conditional ballot supposedly is if you're a legitimate California voter and you've changed your registration on the day, or you have registered for the first time. By the way, if you're not registered to vote, go in, go in, go in. You can register today in California. Now, if you go in for the first time, you've never registered before, bring ID. That is, bring your California driver's license or a passport with your photo on it, and also bring proof of address, because your passport doesn't have an address. If your driver's license has an old address, bring in an electric bill, a cable bill, an Amazon bill, a Pornhub, whatever I know, whatever you have.
Don't look at me.
Weren't you a star in one of those? No, okay.
It was the Jewish porn channel.
Right. So what's happening is that Padilla is now that he has to accept these new registered, and you get the conditional ballot, or they don't have. You're not supposed to have to show ID to change your party registration from NPP to Democratic. That doesn't stop them from asking you. So be prepared. Always bring ID to the polls. It's illegal for them to ask you. They do anyway. There's no sense getting in an argument. Try to avoid getting a provisional ballot. If they try to give you a provisional ballot, say, no, I want to re-register today, and get the conditional ballot. The conditional ballot is almost certainly to be counted. Provisional ballot, a third will be discounted, and will be disqualified. Here's a fact. In 2016, 8.6 million people voted in the California primary. No other state came close to it. 8.6 million people voted, but only 7.3 million votes were counted for the presidency. You had 1.3 million ballots which were not counted for the presidency. Now, some people really don't want to vote for president, but that's usually just a handful. Mostly it's people whose ballots got disqualified. Mostly those NPP voters
Who favored Sanders.
Who favored Sanders. By the way, they favored Sanders more than 2-1, 67% to 29%. And by the way, for those of you who think that PolitiFact knows the political facts, they said, anyone who said that Bernie Sanders actually won the voting in 2016 over Hillary Clinton, oh, that's conspiracy nuts. Because in order for Sanders to win, he would have had to been in those uncounted 750,000 NPP ballots. He would have had to have won those 2-1. Guess what? He did. 67% to 29% for Bernie Sanders in 2016. He absolutely won that primary if you counted those ballots. That doesn't mean I was for Sanders or against Clinton. It has nothing to do with it. This is about the right to vote. Now, I go all over the country for 20 years, Jordan. I go all over the country to investigate vote suppression. If you know Greg Palast, I started in the year 2000. When Katherine Harris, the Republican Secretary of State, another one who was running the Bush campaign, declared George Bush president of the United States by just 537 votes after she removed tens of thousands of black people from the voter rolls, saying that they were ex-cons who can't vote in Florida, I got a hold of the list. Exactly zero were illegal ex-con voters. Zero. But they all said next to their names BLA for black, because in Florida you list the race of the voter. And these were black people, tens of thousands, who were denied their right to vote. And that's how George W. Bush became president. But I thought, okay, that'll come to an end once I expose that in Florida, 2000. It got worse in 2004 with the theft of Ohio. 2008 and 12. By the way, Barack Obama was cheated out of 5.9 million votes. I talked to him about it, my co-author, Bobby Kennedy, at Rolling Stone. Spoke to me, knew all about this, but he said, well, what I did is I overwhelmed the steal. See, that's the thing to know. Don't get discouraged from voting. They can't steal all the votes all the time. I was just in Wisconsin, where the Scott Walker, who was the Republican governor, did everything in the world to bend the vote. Illegal purges of voters. Before the 2016 election, remember, Hillary Clinton was shocked that she lost Wisconsin by just 22,000 votes. Well, Hillary Clinton's always shocked, but besides the point, not knowing the voters, and she decided not to show up in Wisconsin. Obviously, Putin told her to do that. That's why Putin affected our election. He told her, Hillary, don't go to Wisconsin. It's not your night.
Or Michigan.
Or don't go to Michigan. Don't go to Wisconsin. Anyway, she lost by 22,000 votes. But the truth is, the GOP changed the rules 2 weeks before the election in 2016, 2 weeks, and said that you had to have a photo ID issued by the state to vote. Now, the state issues photo IDs to 180,000 students at the University of Wisconsin, but they said that ID doesn't count. So dig this, they knocked out 182,000 student voters. The University of Wisconsin said about 50,000 would have voted. Would the students at the University of Wisconsin, one of the most left-wing schools in the United States of America, would they have voted for Trump? Think not. So the 50,000 votes lost there elected Donald Trump president. So it's usually been the GOP knocking out voters of color, which has been manipulating the elections. But now I come to my own home state of California. And, hey, man, we're all cool here. We're all, surfer dudes. But the problem is that in California, we're also knocking out voters of color, aiming especially at the Hispanic vote. And Tio Bernie owns that Hispanic vote, and they know it. They also, by the way, interestingly, the system screws Michael Bloomberg because, he's a Republican. No matter how you cut it, he's not only Republican by his registration for 12 years, but he was Republican by policy. But the main thing is he's not part of the Democratic establishment. They'll take his money, but still, Alex Padilla is trying to preserve the party's control for the Democratic establishment. Now, I'm telling you, like Tom Hartman says, I'm not telling you to vote Democratic, but I am telling you, if you want to vote in this primary, register as a Democrat, and you can do that today, Monday. You can do it. Go into the voting centers. You can do it tomorrow. On official election day, you can register to vote. If you're registered no party preference, change to Democrat. You can always change back the next day. Change to Democrat so you can vote in that primary if that's what you want. Or ask for that crossover Democratic Party ballot. You have to use the word crossover. They're not allowed to suggest it. You don't walk in and say, what's the name of that ballot where I can vote for as an independent voter? And they go, because their lips are sealed by order of the Secretary of State. And so what they might do is give you a provisional ballot. They might give you another NPP ballot, and you're going to say, where's the presidential candidates? Democratic crossover ballot is what you need, or re-register as a Democrat and get a Democrat ballot. So that's how to preserve your vote. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. Vote who you want. I'm just saying if you want to vote, don't count on the Democratic Party of California to make it easy for you to vote. They don't like you. They don't want you. And they know if all these people join the Democratic Party, the sclerotic Democratic leadership would be history.
Remember, we got over 1,000 people watching live. Smash that like button. It's right under the live stream. More people that press the like button, the more people that will see the live stream. We're also 79 members away from 1,800. Sign up, $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join. But press that like button right now. It's a super chat too. If you're feeling super, let us know. I have so many questions. First of all,
Get three.
are there no conflicts of interest in America? Alex Padilla is a Secretary of State. How is he running the election when in 2016 he endorsed Hillary Clinton? Now he's endorsed Joe Biden. He's overseeing all of this. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if it was somebody supporting Bernie Sanders? They would not be overseeing the election. It just seems to me there's just a blatant conflict of interest here. And secondly, you said they can't tell the voters. Okay. Why is it instructed to the poll workers that they can't inform the voters how to do?
You have the polling chiefs say that you cannot inform poll voters if they come in with their independent or no party preference NPP vote, and they want that crossover ballot for the Democratic Party, they have to know the term crossover. You can't say that other ballot or the other, that kind of the ballot for the NPP voter. You got to say crossover. Now,
Because I'm sure people working 3 jobs have studied.
Everyone knows that, right? It's like, so here's the deal. And especially, by the way, I don't even know what crossover is in Spanish, and I'm pretty good in Spanish. But so that's the other problem, is that technically you're supposed to be allowed to use any language. So, what is it in Urdu and Armenian? I don't know. So they're making it very difficult. And it is a massive conflict. But it's not just this state, okay? So we have Alex Padilla in California, who's a political hack who supports Bernie Sanders. He's against Bernie Sanders. He's supporting Joe Biden now. He was for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and the results were bent. And he's the guy who literally threw out these ballots and stopped this stuff. Now, I spoke to the top voting rights attorney in the United States. Her name is Barbara Arnwine. She's a professor at both UCLA Law School and Columbia University Law School in New York, though she lives in Washington, spends a lot of time on planes, as you can imagine. And Barbara Arnwine, Professor Arnwine, has said that Alex Padilla and all these gangsters, voting gangsters, who tell the poll workers, don't give the voter any help. Don't tell them that the NPP voters have to ask for a crossover ballot. She said that muzzling poll workers is completely illegal. She won a suit against another partisan hack in Ohio. In this case, it was a Republican who had muzzled poll workers who were trying to help voters figure out the voting system so that they could get their vote cast. Like, for example, if you suddenly find yourself not registered, not on the polling books, they will hand you automatically a provisional ballot. Don't take it. Don't take a provisional ballot. A provisional ballot is a placebo ballot. You think you voted and you haven't. Or you call it a tranquilizer ballot. Don't take the provisional ballot. If you're in California, you have the right to say, no, I don't want the provisional ballot. I want to register right now as a Democrat so I can get the regular Democratic ballot. You'll put it in the conditional ballot envelope. I think they're going to have a hard time not counting those ballots. Now, look, Sanders is going to win California. They can't stop him. What they're trying to do, there's 494 delegates at stake in California. What they're trying to do is deny him enough delegates that he doesn't wrap up the nomination, because he could, with California, virtually wrap up the nomination.
Right. And it seems to me also, as you've seen in Nevada, California, the Latino vote is enormous. And in Nevada, Texas right now, it's going to Bernie Sanders. So it seems like this cacophony of 7 different types of ballots and misdirection and all these things. We know in 2016 they sent out misleading mailers, is particularly to confuse and disenfranchise, to me, Latino voters, younger voters, and people that are just probably going to the polling booth without all this information, thinking it'll just
go vote. And then they go, and then they get a ballot, an NPP ballot, because they're listed as independent, no party preference. Or they get an independent party ballot, about 500,000 people, and they're going to say, wait, where are the candidates? Who are these people? And the answer is because the independent party doesn't make you independent. It's like an 8th party. It used to be George Wallace's old party. And so if you are an independent registered voter, you can still ask for the Democratic crossover ballot. If you're a no party preference voter, you can ask for the Democratic ballot. And if you're a no voter, if you're not registered, you can still go in and register. The best thing is just to re-register on the spot, bring your ID. And that's your best bet. But they are definitely confusing people. Now, you have to understand, last fall, all 5 million California independent voters, that is those in the independent party and those registered no party preference, all 5 million, got a postcard saying you can register, you can vote in the Democratic primary if you sign and return this postcard. Now, who the heck returns junk mail like that or even gets it? So they know that about almost 15-20% of suburban white homeowners return the card. So a lot of them save their vote. But 18 to 24-year-old students who move dorm rooms and stuff like that don't get their cards and don't think about it and not used to mail. They're used to, Instagram. Only 1 out of 20 returned their cards to vote in the Democratic primary. And with Latinos, the same. Part of that is a language issue. So only 1 in 20 Latinos returned that card. And then they walk into the booth, the voting station. They goes, "Where's my ballot?" If they can, And so understand, you can get that crossover Democratic Party ballot. And they're supposed to have it in all the languages in California. But good luck. It's very, very important. And if they say they've run out of crossover ballots, here, just write in Bernie Sanders if that's what you want, or Amy Klobuchar, doesn't matter, whatever you want to write in. A lot of people were told to write in the candidate's name on that no party preference ballot where it says write-in candidate. Don't do that. It absolutely cannot legally be counted. It cannot legally be counted, and they will throw it away. That's just to get you out of the voting station. Oh, we ran out of crossover ballots, so here. They might as well write it on toilet paper if you do that, if you just fill in the NPP ballot and write in your candidate. So this is all about screwing Bernie Sanders. Collateral damage is Mike Bloomberg, because he's actually a Republican, and the Democrats like his money but not him. So he's getting shafted too. But, I must admit, I don't have a lot of sympathy for a guy who's trying to buy his election.
Well, also, wouldn't it behoove the Democratic Party to suppress even Bloomberg's votes so they juice up Biden's delegate count?
Yeah, absolutely. This is not about screwing Bloomberg. This is about building up Biden. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm against Biden. But if Biden wants to win, Joe, get the most votes. Don't steal the most votes. They're doing this in your name. You should be saying something about it. He stands up there and he hugs Stacey Abrams. Just so you know, Stacey Abrams, Group Fair Fight Georgia, has hired my expert team to help her in her litigation. So my crew is working with Stacey Abrams' crew. I myself don't. I'm an independent journalist. I have to work with Guardian and others. Even Stacey Abrams, who is nonpartisan right now, I stay arm's length.
But she wants to be Biden's vice president, but I digress.
She wants to be, well, I don't know what she wants. I can't get in her head. Biden wants her to be vice president. But, you can't cuddle up to Stacey Abrams, who's trying to fight vote suppression, when, Joe, you are participating in the largest scheme of vote suppression in the United States. No state, and I was in Georgia, I was in Florida, I was in Scott Walker's Wisconsin, I was in right-wing Ohio, where they steal votes by the hundreds of thousands. No state is as bad as California. It pains me to say that as a Californian. And, Democrats, really? Come on.
We got 1,300 people watching. 755 of you have pressed that like button. I need another 500. Smash the like button right under the live stream. Smash that. Look at that fedora. It's classic.
Look at me. Are you going to tell me you really don't like this program? Then why are you still watching? Hit that like button. There you go. I'm having fun, and I think it's important. To come in to this studio, especially because it's California-based. I want people to get their vote. I don't care who you vote for. I really, truly don't. It's not my thing. I stay away from all the partisan crap. I am very concerned about vote theft. And, Joe, try to win it by convincing people to vote for you, not by stopping the votes from being counted. Alex Padilla has done more to, it's a shame. Here you have a Hispanic Democrat who's done more to stop Hispanic Democratic voters than anyone.
The Secretary of State of California.
Secretary of State of California, Alex Padilla, because he has totally gone down the political hack line. And I saw this, it's racially based. So in California, they steal Hispanic votes and young votes, because that's Bernie supporters. In Ohio, they were stealing hundreds of thousands of African-American votes. And yet, for a while there, the vote thief in chief was a Republican Secretary of State named Ken Blackwell, who is African-American. So while it's race in one way, it's race, it's racial, don't assume that it's because of race. It's all partisanship. In other words, they know black people in Ohio vote Democratic. They know Hispanics and young people in California vote for Bernie Sanders. That's what it's about. And so they understand. And by the way, now Bernie Sanders while he led in the African-American vote in South Carolina, because it's a very conservative evangelical vote, Bernie Sanders actually leading the African-American vote. We have 105,000 African-Americans in California who have registered no party preference. But if you, my friends, want to vote in the primary, please register when you walk in as a Democrat, re-register as Democrat. I'm not endorsing the Democratic Party. I'm saying this is how you vote in Democratic primary. And very honestly, I'm not a friend of open primaries. I think if you are running in, if you want to pick the candidate for a party, join that party. And I think the Democratic Party, by the way, the Republican Party of California is closed. You can't ask for a Republican ballot. You cannot. There's no such thing as a crossover Republican ballot. You have to be in the Republican Party to vote Republican. I think one of the reasons the California Party maintains an open primary, but then adds all these crazy rules to get your vote, is to basically slice off the progressive vote. Young people in particular. My assistant was registering voters, and she just would ask, and what she said, well, who are you favoring? She said almost every student she registered, and she was on a college campus, almost every student said that they were favoring Bernie Sanders, and yet not one registered in the Democratic Party. So how do you expect to get Sanders in if you're not registered as a Democrat? Well, because you're told falsely that it's easy to vote in the Democratic primary if you are not registered Democrat. Not true. No party preference means you may be out of luck. You have the right, but you have to know the magic word. Bring in your NPP ballot, your independent, no party preference ballot. It doesn't missing the candidates. Say, I want the Democratic crossover ballot. Crossover. Crossover. Okay, do you get that word? Not crisscross, not cross out, not cross under, it is crossover ballot. You have to use that word. Now, I got to tell you, I appreciate, and by the way, come after me, Alex. I'm telling your poll workers, ignore that damn ridiculous and illegal muzzle rule. Please tell voters, here's how you vote. Don't tell them how to vote. Here's how you vote, not who you vote for, how you vote. Or the best thing of all, to make sure your vote counts, register on the day, as today or tomorrow, as a Democrat. You can change it later. You don't have to vote in November for anyone, or you don't have to vote at all. But all it does is give you that right to make sure your ballot gets counted. So I'm repeating myself for a reason. Are you listening? And by the way, go to gregpalast.com to get that video. Pass it around. Make sure that you like this thing and pass it around to everyone, because this is not about my opinion about who you should vote for. This is Greg Palast telling you how to save your vote. 1 million votes are going to be thrown in the garbage in California. Don't let it be yours.
Well, let me ask you, call me a cynical Susie, but how do people know if they register tomorrow, same day registration as a Democrat, and they could change it the next day? How do they know it's going to be counted that same day? I mean, that's a whole. It sounds good, same day registration, but how do you know if you register as a Democrat tomorrow, your vote's going to be counted?
You don't. And this is the problem. Okay, all right, rest my case. Here's the problem, but don't let that scare you, because you got to vote one way or the other. If you want to get your vote counted, I'm just telling you the best way to do it. Register as a Democrat. They'll probably stick your ballot in a conditional ballot envelope. Fill out every single space. If you don't have a driver's license and it asks for that number, say no driver's license. Make sure you sign it. But if you do all those steps, the conditionals, we've never had conditional ballots, so I'm guessing what's going to happen, but I feel confident that we'll get those counted. If they give you a provisional ballot, I'm not confident that will be counted. So it's murder. They didn't count over 1 million ballots in 2016. Over 1 million. By the way, that's not my numbers. That comes from the Secretary of State himself. And just so you know, I've asked Alex Padilla about 6 times, come on camera, talk to me. Talk to me on by the phone. I said, okay, if you don't want to talk to me, give me the numbers. Give me all the data and facts. Their answers, when I asked them to follow up and back up their numbers on their website, they took the numbers off their website. So Alex Padilla, California has a Freedom of Information Act law. But under Padilla, the Secretary of State's office is neither free nor informative. So it's a political cesspool. He's running Joe Biden's campaign out of what is supposed to be the a impartial voting office. Now, I know he's...
Is that being run out of Russia or California?
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, is that, you don't need the Russians to tell Biden's buddy Alex Padilla how to fix an election. Californians are pretty good at fixing their own elections, even if they don't know a word of Russian. And we have that in Wisconsin, where Scott Walker is trying to steal the votes. Now, here's the thing. Walker, in Wisconsin, the Republican governor and his political cronies in the legislature changed all the rules to give the win to Donald Trump in 2016. The public was so angry that they came back and threw Scott Walker out of office, which just shows you they can't steal all the votes all the time. So if you're saying, oh, Greg Palast, you're making me feel bad, I don't know why bother to vote, they're going to steal it. No, they can't steal all the votes all the time. And I can tell you this right now. So, yeah, they're going to throw out a lot of those ballots, and a lot of no party preference voters think they can't vote. And I know some of you have already mailed in your ballot and now feel sick to your stomach because hundreds of thousands of NPP voters didn't get the presidential candidates. So they said, well, I guess I'm stuck. I can't vote for president. And you mailed in your ballot and you lost your vote. Nothing you can do about that one, my friend. Nothing you can do about that. If you've already mailed it in, you've kissed your vote goodbye. Hundreds of thousands of voters. Now, understand, again, the independent NPP voters are overwhelmingly Sanders supporters. And number two is Mike Bloomberg, because he was himself a Republican and independent. So some of the white older independents like Bloomberg. And again, the party wants to boost Biden. So they want to knock out Bloomberg. They want to knock out Sanders. If you want to knock people out, I have no problem with that. That's politics. Hey, Alex, you want to knock out Bloomberg? You want to knock out Sanders? Let them campaign and make their case. Don't mess with the ballots, okay? This is not, we're going back. The tactics used here are as bad or worse than what I saw in Georgia. And that was really ugly Jim Crow stuff. So, go to gregpalast.com, get the latest reports. And by the way, follow my reports after they shaft Bernie in California. And he'll still get the win, but they're just trying to crush down his number of delegates that he gets and show that the win isn't as big. And by the way, one of the problems is the conditional ballots and provisional ballots, which will be overwhelmingly for Sanders by the polling, will probably not be counted for 30 days. So in other words, when they announce the first delegate count and the numbers, the announced count will be much lower than what it will be in 30 days. In 30 days, you're going to see Sanders' numbers explode, and also Mike Bloomberg's numbers explode. But you won't hear about it because 30 days after the California primary, and everyone will have gone on to there's a ton of primaries in between that where people wouldn't know that. Yeah,
what the actual
right.
results.
So people say, they'll start saying, Bernie's lost his momentum. He's supposed to win California 2-1, and he didn't, and that's baloney. And again, it's not that whether I'm for Sanders or Ernie or Bernie, I don't care. It's a matter of counting votes.
Now, let me ask you, because, you've been around the block long enough. All we've heard for the last 3 years is the Russian threat to democracy. The boogeyman is coming. Trump, doesn't believe in free and fair elections. But this is a modern-day political mafia you're talking about. From Georgia to California, you did great stuff on cross-check, Chris Kobach. So Bernie had, I think, almost 20,000 people at the convention center yesterday. You have actual democracy going around the country, young people getting involved, Latinos getting involved, young African-Americans getting involved. But this is not democratic. We're casually talking about 1 million ballots getting tossed out.
Well, this is one of the problems, Jordan, which is that you don't need... I'm writing a book, by the way, called How Trump Stole 2020. And if you want to get my film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, you can now get it on Amazon Prime for nothing. Or go to gregpalast.com, and if you want the shorter version, which is we call the activist version, so you guys can have fights afterwards and show it in your church or your massage circle or whatever. And get a hold of me at gregpalast.com. But yeah, so I'm writing this book, How Trump Stole 2020, your final warning, and it's
So he's already stolen. He's already stolen 2020.
Now we have to steal it back with the voters. You know, I mean, I don't care whether if Trump wins by the vote, I have no problem. I mean, that's democracy. I'll live with it. But if Trump does what he did in 2016, which is steal a vote, or his minions stole the vote, no question. But that wasn't Russia. I mean, I've looked into this, okay? And the problem is that, yeah, did Russia and Putin try to influence the vote? Absolutely. There's no question about it. But the amount that they spent, which is somewhere at maximum $300,000 on Facebook ads, Hillary Clinton spent $2 billion in ads. And, you know, Trump, the Republicans spent over $1 billion. That 300,000 is like, it's spit in the bucket. You know, it's, it reaches 20 million bazillion, but how many times did Hillary reach those people? How many ads? So it's not the Russians, okay? It wasn't the Russians that told Hillary Clinton don't campaign in Wisconsin. It wasn't the Russians. And by the way, Jill Stein paid for a recount in Michigan. Well, it was called a recount in Michigan, but understand, it was not a recount. It was actually counting 75,355 ballots cast in Detroit, which were never counted because the machines broke down in Detroit. Now, supposedly Trump won Michigan by 10,700 votes, not counting the 75,300 votes that were never, ever counted because the machines broke down in Detroit. Now, you tell me, who did those votes go for in Motown? Is that Trump territory? Now, dig this. So I went to Michigan during the so-called recount. It was counting the uncounted ballots. Absolutely, Hillary was walking away with that count of the uncounted. Trump went into court, his lawyers, in Lansing, Michigan, and said, wait, stop the recount. Jill Stein, you can count the votes 100 times. Jill Stein, the Green Party, ain't going to win. So she has no right, no standing to bring this count, even if she pays for it. It's up to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's lawyers were in the courtroom. And so the judge said to her lawyers, well, what does Secretary Clinton want? And they said, we're just here to observe. Because they literally let Trump steal Michigan. People ask me why. I don't know. I can't crawl into Hillary Clinton's heads or the Democratic National Committee's heads. It's not my job. I don't know what they're thinking, but I can tell you this. They let Trump steal Michigan. They let Trump steal Wisconsin. They let Trump steal Pennsylvania. They didn't raise a word. When Al Gore was cheated out of his election by the removal of black voters from the voter rolls, he said not a word about the cheating of those black voters. And you know what, Al, they're not your votes. They're their votes. I don't even know why that case was called Bush v. Gore. Why were Bush and Gore even in that courtroom in Florida? It was about Florida voters. 94,000 black voters lost their votes. 94,000. Jim Crow and the Democratic Party said nothing. The only time I've ever heard a Democrat say a word, like Stacey Abrams has raised hell. The great Elijah Cummings, just before he passed away, I spoke to him. He was raising hell. Jesse Jackson, I've been working with him, raising hell. What's missing here? Where are the pale faces? You see me on MSNBC, but not with a white host. And so let me ask you a question, Democratic Party. Where's the Congressional White Caucus on the issue of vote suppression? I've got to get going, and I hope you've been hitting that like button. Go to gregpalast.com. Get the best democracy money can buy. Download it for free. You'll agree. It's not a good for you film. It's not a bunch of white guys in front of bookcases. It's entertaining with Willie Nelson, Rosario Dawson, Ed Asner as Santa Claus. And Ice-T is in there, and from Law and Order with Richard Belzer, Special Voters Unit, and lots of good animations and cartoons, but it's also the real story about how the election was stolen in 2016, the best democracy money can buy. Get it?
I've seen it. It's terrific. It's terrific. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for watching. Remember, We are 79 members away from 1,800. Would love to hit 1,800 while we're here in California. At 3:30 Pacific, I think that's 6:30 Eastern, I'm going on the Empire Files with Abby Martin. So you could go over to the Empire Files at 6:30 Eastern time. Check me out on the Empire Files. Then right after that, well, not right after that. I'm getting my time zones confused. Later on tonight, I think at 7 Pacific, so 10 o'clock Eastern, we'll be covering a Get Out the Vote rally here in Los Angeles. And then tomorrow, we will be live most of the day on Super Tuesday from Bernie's Coffee Shop, which I hear is a real cabal of progressives and real Mother Earthers here in California. So we are very, very busy on the campaign trail in Super Tuesday. We need your funding. There's a lot of other primaries to cover. A lot of we got to monitor what Greg is talking about all over the country, because the Democratic Party, it's not Russia. Right now, it's the Democratic Party. So sign up for as low as $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join. I'll be on the Empire Files in a little bit. Peace out.
Say hi to Abby for me.